Angie, you and Matt are doing a great job at the retreat.
Oh, thanks. It's been a good year for learning, that's for sure.
You've done well.
Thank you. Happy to be up there.
Oh,
Marcos, can you hear us?
Tom, it's Ted. I can hear you. I don't know that he can.
I can hear you. I was on mute, sorry about that.
Would you unmute Mike McClary, please?
I just got the prompt. I muted myself, but I can't unmute myself.
So Marcos, what's cooking? Are we having trouble getting people in or showing up?
It looks
Mike was
like,
able to get in without logging in.
yeah, right now we have 22 participants in whole. Other than, we've got a couple people that called in, but I think people are getting in fairly easily right now.
Don't see David Wilson yet. Talked to him like 10 after, and he was going to try and get in early.
Hey, Darren, did you get in? I sent you the address information again. Oh, yeah, that's a problem that Marcos is dealing with right now. Yeah, I understand. Dave and Ted and Mike and Angie and I are really down right now. Yeah. Well, you can't see the charts, no.
Are you able to get in?
Yep.
They implemented some new security thing. Let me see if they can somehow contact you by email address. Just
Okay.
Hey, Marcos?
I'll contact Marcos and see if there's something I can do. I'll give you a call back in just a minute.
Marcos?
Yes.
Is there a way, like if you have an email address that you can connect somebody from our end?
I'm looking. It doesn't appear that way right now.
I thought sometimes there's a way to invite somebody.
if you send the link back out again,
Yeah, but you're going to need to be able
That might
to
work.
see the slides. Have you just tried like an email to see, or does it not activate the? Okay. Try. Okay, it may not let you click join without the password.
Marcos, I've talked to Terry Larson, and he also is being challenged. He apparently has to have some kind of a password to get in.
Hey Tom, this is Aaron. I had the issue too. It said I had to have an authorized email, so I thought it was my FRMD email, and it's not. It's whatever email you signed into Zoom whenever you signed up to Zoom. So that was the problem I was having. So I just used my personal email and was able to get it.
Yeah, but not everybody has it. JD sent a note saying under participants.
Yeah, I can sign in by email, okay, but that's not the problem.
Participant invite email. So if you're, I don't know if you have to be on the web part of it.
He just said you need to update the client for Zoom, which means to go down and reload your Zoom.
I updated my Zoom client the other day, unless it's just part of it. But Marcos, as the host, are you able to do participants? Maybe you have to do it from the web, but look at JD's note in the chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna chat with him real quick and see if he has any ideas, because it might just be certain people may not have performed their update.
I went through this with the HOA meeting a couple weeks ago, and they resent the link to the blast, and that worked.
Okay, Jenny's on. She says she can reblast it if she needs to.
Yeah, I use the address on the email blast to get in.
Yeah,
So did I. Worked. I saw the sign-in page, Mike, but if you wait long enough, you connect. I think you can wait and you'll go in. But I think maybe a re-blast will work. This is wonderful for COVID.
So, Angie, if you can unmute JD, he's gonna be able to help walk us through with this real quick.
So I just unmuted, but I was able to change all the settings real fast, and so we just had a bunch of people join. So I took off the requirement that needed an account.
Okay, I see Terry's in there.
Yep.
Good job, Angie.
So hopefully it let everybody in that was waiting, trying to get signed in.
David's in.
Well, that would explain how I got in. I do have my own account.
So one note, going forward, you guys will want to make sure that you enable the password for the Zoom email. I'm sorry, for the Zoom meeting. and that way the link will include that password. There was an update that Zoom needed to do, I think it was a couple months ago. Don't know why it's hitting everybody now, but Angie's fix works for this meeting, but it won't work for the future ones unless you guys want to set that up with password or waiting room, one of the two.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. I may reach out to you offline and get a little more information so that we don't run into this issue again.
Should we go ahead and start? David's on now. Can you unmute David Wilson, David's iPad?
Yep, one sec. Should have sent her. Let me grab Terry.
He's unmuted. David's free.
Yeah, thank you. I thought I was the dumbest guy on this call. Started early and took me 25 minutes to get through.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start. See, we have 28 people on. And hopefully everybody else tries again. So thank you everyone for your patience and persistence in getting in. We're having a workstation tonight to talk about a couple of topics. This is as much for the other board members as it is for the community. So anybody that has questions, I guess raise a hand or something as we go through this. But the one topic is to talk about mill levy options. That's going to be the second topic, and I'm going to cover that. But David Wilson was elected to the board back in May and has really jumped in to work on a lot of things. He's going to talk about values, mission, vision statements, and business plan. So I'm going to turn it over to David, and Marcus or Angie, you can share his slides.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, coming right now.
Thanks, Angie. How about going back to the mission? Yeah. The second slide there, Angie. I'm David Wilson. I am new to the board. I have been around corporate governance structures for quite a while. I won't say how long, but it's a lot. It's close to half a century. The mission and vision values are two of the foundation, probably most critical documents that a board establishes. The mission is relatively straightforward. You think of it on behalf of why does the district exist? When you get over, and I'll go through what the mission statement says, this is a collaborative mission statement, as is the vision. The vision statement pulls apart the mission statement a bit and talks about what the vision for the organization be. And it becomes the foundation as you're looking forward to doing budgeting, business plans. It's really the other way around, doing business plans. And it becomes a decision-making process. When you're making a decision on something, you go back to what the vision says, and you also look at your values and talk if these decisions really fit back into what we say we're going to do. I'll start with the mission, and I'll probably jump around a little bit just because the thoughts scatter because the concepts intermingle. The mission, I think, as you can read here, the boards of Fossil Ridge Metro Districts, on behalf of the residents, exist and that's the importance of a mission statement, is why does this organization exist? Exists to guide the community's priorities, projects, and activities in accordance with the founding documents, i.e. the second amended and restated service plan. If this was a corporation, it would make reference back to the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, as well as what the public, being what product you're selling, what do they look for from you? As part of its responsibility, the board oversees the financial affairs of the district in a prudent, cost-effective, fair, timely, and transparent manner in compliance with statutory requirements and existing agreements. So that's a pretty big mouthful, but it lays the foundation of what the board's somewhat responsibility is. If you allow me, I'll go to the next slide and then I'll slow down for a minute.
I just wanted to have one thing in here though. This has not been adopted by the boards yet. I would assume we look at doing that at the December meeting maybe. This is what's being proposed. So it's open to change. It will be the board that makes the decision on the final version.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. This is all in draft form, so it is the December board meeting would be where the mission, vision, values, and the business plan would be presented. The vision becomes, again, a little more of a meats and potato type of document, in that, as I'm sure many or all of you on this call know the old phrase that you don't lay something out there unless you can measure it, and you can aspire to be a lot of things, but you better be able to measure it. And so as we go through some of the components in the vision statement, you'll see that there are things that need measured to hold true to what you're saying. And I'll come back and highlight those and talk how they get incorporated into the business plan. We envision a community that offers an inspiring lifestyle and quality of life while preserving property values. Now, that's a mouthful on its own, that I think all of us that moved into this community did so because we like the feeling of the community, what the community had to offer. Depending on decisions, you can drive down the property value or you can hold it and drive it out. And that's just the side. We will strive to enhance the character of Solterra, the quality of life to its residents, the feeling of community, and inform and represent its members. Those all have measurable components to them, being how would you communicate and how would you inform the residents. So that would be something that would need to be incorporated in the business plan. The boards will strive to make Solterra a model community in the Denver area by maintaining high standards and fairness through a community resident boards committed to efficiency, sustainable and cost-effective operations and maintenance. Lot of words there. The model community in the Denver area. I think for the residents on this call, that becomes the option of to be a model community. There's a cost associated to it, being the upkeep of the grounds, the upkeep of the retreat center, or you can just let the trees die out, not do the upkeep, and then that drives property values down. the ability to measure that would be by looking at other communities in the Denver area and start measuring how our cost reflects back to the costs in the other areas. The boards will lead community efforts to promote and protect the quality of life, safety, and well-being of its residents, enhance the character of the Solterra neighborhoods with responsive service and support in the management of district assets, and encourage community involvement and collaboration. And those are things that we would look to suggest in the business plan and develop some matrix to measure how those are actually doing. So Mike or Tom, I'll leave that to you if you want to open up discussion on the mission and vision at this point.
I would ask, like, this is the time to discuss this. If we present this at the December meeting, now is the time to discuss it if you have questions, if you want to suggest changes, especially from board members. And if you haven't had time to look at it and things like that, I guess follow up with David and talk with him about it. But if you've had time to look at it and have some ideas, it'd be good to get them out on the table now.
This is Dave McGraw. David, great job. One comment she made is that the board has tremendous influence on the impact of what we do on property values. I would agree we are an input factor, but I would also say that Proposition 200 that was just passed, which impacts supply and demand in Lakewood, will impact property values. Proposition B, negating the Gallagher influence, we now have a multiplier that is now fixed, 7.15. That has been going down since the multiplier has been going down since we all moved in here since 2007. That impacts it also. I think there are other factors that impact property values. We do the best we can to make sure that they go in the right direction, but we don't have total control.
Right, but it also depends on how individuals take care of their own homes and so on, which I guess the HOA covenants come into play in that, and they're a separate organization from the board. But this should help us in making decisions when we do budgeting. Also, like we've talked about on the board about getting away from being a doing board to a governing board. And to me, that could increase costs in the past because a lot of board members do a lot of work on a weekly basis. And if we start having contractors or other people doing some of that work, that could mean some expenses could go up.
Yeah, point well taken, and Dave McGraw, thank you, and Mike, thank you for the comments. And for anybody on this call, if you do have comments for consideration, please feel free to send it to me. I can provide you with my email address. I'll do that at the end of this. The component that will be part of this as well as the value statement, and those are pretty black and white. We're not going to go through those tonight. When the documents are approved by the board, they will go on the website so that they're somewhat a lighthouse for people to go to and take a look. They're not stagnant documents, so they would be updated periodically. Angie, why don't we go to the business plan? The business plan is a very crucial document, and the business plan and its reporting to the board and the board's follow-up is probably one of the most important things that you do. I've worked with troubled companies now for 25 years, and one of the first things when I walk into that company that I ask for, besides the board minutes, because I want to know the board is paying attention to significant issues, is the business plan. And the business plan, then I'm looking to see, is the board looking at the business plan? And is there variance reporting that's coming out of that business plan? So I'm just giving you a little backdrop of the importance of the business plan. I commend this board of taking over the ownership of something that was very complicated, very confusing from its developers, and developing some incredible procedures, processes over the last several years. I think this will help set the ground rules going forward, being annual business plans with variance reporting to the plan. This, needless to say, is not the plan. The plan's 5 pages long. There's lots of detail that'll be presented to the board. But from an overview standpoint, and that's really what this is when you would see the detailed business plan, it'll go into the background of Solterra, which would be normal. We'll go into the mission and vision, as we said before, is kind of setting the ground rules for what the board is to be doing, as well as the interests of the community. It'll talk about the budgets, because again, the budgets don't set the business plan. The business plan sets the budgets. And here, because the revenue component of it is, I say set, it's somewhat a fixed component that comes out of the taxation side and or assessments to homeowners. And so there's the discussion of the various 4 budgets that come through the District 1, as well as the budgets that come through Districts 2 and 3. They're a little more straightforward since they're the taxing districts. The actual business plan is then broken down into the various areas, and governance being one which you could really say is more the board area. And there's 4 objectives that are under that are measurable for the year. And I just give you one, is to develop dashboards to measure the success of the 2021 business plan. I kind of cheat and give you another one that I'm recommending to the board. That's a semi-annual reporting to the residents on the status of the community. And that's a little different than the normal reporting that's probably been done. This would be an update, so you know what's going on with the business plan, even though there would be these community calls.
And if I may interrupt this, Greg, when you talk about these are not just financial aspects, but all of the elements of the business plan that go back to the vision statement, correct?
That's right, Craig, and that's a real important point. This is not just a financial business plan. This is an all-encompassing Solterra business plan for the metro districts. Thank you. The second component, and this follows right along with what Craig brought up, is the acceptance procedures for new filings. And I think from these various calls that have taken place, we're all very aware that there are some of these filings have not been accepted yet. And this sets out some key components, even though some of it's pretty difficult to push and set deadlines because you have a third party or another party that is as involved in it as we are. we want it done right. That might not be the other party's position with it. So I, again, appreciate the steps that have been taken with the various filings, as well as those that have participated in it. The water feature number C, the tributary and water feature, very similar, that there's focus that the board would have on those features, and there's certain key components that have been identified by those that are a lot smarter than I that need to be done within the next year, and we'll measure those. We'll talk about those at board meetings and develop some time period. The number D is snow removal, and again, I think that's a common theme of probably a lot of homeowners on this call as it is to the board. That's not a done deal because something was put together last summer, and there's additional discussion and processes that need to take place that there will be some procedures put around. Now you get into some of the other areas that are committees, and you see that there's 4 committees that are identified here. The Finance Committee, there's numerous processes. It looks like there's about probably 10 different objectives for the year. And some of those, again, to interest the people here is, you know, in addition to just doing variance reporting and developing a little different, well, let me back up. Variance reporting, planning out next year's audit. There's numerous of those financial reviews that the board needs oversight over, in addition to the budget next year. But one key component would be the 2019 reserve study that was done, made recommendations on spendings that need to take place over a period of extended period, 30 to 40 years. It's key to get those into the budget. And so one of the procedures, one of the things we're looking at is to develop what those look like for the next 5 years. So in essence, a 5-year plan on the reserve study and the means to be able to develop some form of a reserve that will fund those costs as they come due. We're looking at a 3-year projection of revenue and expenses. Going any further of that would be very possible, depending on if we have a crystal ball, if there's going to be a recession, if home values go up, home values go down. But it's a means to take a look at where we'll be in 3 years, because there's in each of the next 3 years, because part of that revenue goes to fund the cost of the bonding. Those are the types of things that would be subcategories. And the pull and retreat have 5, 6 objectives that they've identified, the committee identified for next year that, again, will be placed before the board. All of those items are being considered in the budget. The social committee, very similar. They have 5 events they've laid out. There's some budget that's set aside for that. Again, will be presented to the board. Then the landscape committee, as we all know, do a pretty amazing job keeping this place pretty beautiful. And going back to the vision, this is an upper end development in Colorado, and we want to keep it that way.
We should probably try and wrap up, even though we got a late start. We should try to.
No, I'm pretty well wrapped up, Mike. I hope I didn't go into too much detail and enough. What the steps are is to present to the community tonight. Hopefully that is somewhat helpful and informative. Request the board approval of the various documents at the December meeting. And again, this is a document that's been jointly put together. If it's approved by the board, then it'll be posted to the Solterra website, so you have the ability to go look at it. And then the board will track the progress of the business plan on a quarterly basis. That's all I have, Mike.
Okay. If somebody has a question, maybe unshare for a little bit. And if somebody has a question, raise their hand in their screen or do a prompt.
Well, Mike, Tom Waterman here. I appreciate what David's done. He, I think, has filled the void for us. We never really had a charter about what we aspire to be, how we intend to proceed, and then the focus areas that we're going to pursue. And I think that that's something that's important. Yeah, you may say the vision is motherhood and apple pie, but quite frankly, we are looking to establish a civil, interactive community, and this is kind of the charter that we want to follow. And as we get into this more deeply, why we'll get down into the various components and be able to address those. But I think David's done a nice job of setting the stage for us. It is an initial action, and we've got more to do on it. But I think it's a structure that we can build upon and expand as time goes forward. So thank you, David.
See, Deborah Corsi, I don't know if I pronounced her last name right. I think she's the one that has her hand up. Or is it Pete Ender?
If I had my hand up, I made a mistake.
Oh, maybe it was Pete that had. Oh, never mind. It was my cursor. Never mind. Yeah, has his hand up.
It looks like Jim has a comment, so I will. There you go.
Yeah. What is the genesis for all of this? I mean, did I miss another meeting sometime? I mean, did the board request this? Is this,
No.
I mean, is this just another document that y'all feel we need or what?
Actually, a lot of businesses do this kind of stuff, and David.
I know, but we're not a business.
Well,
And
it's an organization, and it's good to have an idea of what we want to do. Something that helps guide what we do, like even in the budget. So
Can we have more time to think about it rather than just tonight? And then you all pass it in December meeting?
well,
I mean,
you can
does
see.
anybody else have any thoughts about all of this? Again, it's just something new out of the bag.
This is Craig Brown, Jim. And I think a couple things, your question about, is can we have time to think about it? I guess I didn't understand when you said, can we have time to think about it and then pass it at the December meeting?
Well, I mean, that's what it sounds like you're planning to do. So,
and I think the piece would be is, and I'll give you some background here, but let me start with the end piece here, is that yes, if you have questions, thoughts, comments, please, as David said, send him notes, send him information. The second piece of this that I want to back up, he's going to give you his email.
okay.
And then I think the second piece of this comes in, Jim, is that a lot of districts do this throughout the country, not just in Colorado, but they do set, and when I say district, it can be anything from a metro district to a fire district to a water district to a rescue district, set these things because it does come down to something that David said early on there. As a community, what are we striving for? I think there's been some in the community that have said, what are my taxes going for? What are my fees going for? And if we want to be at this end of the spectrum of communities, it is gonna cost us, so that we have something that we can come back on. To your point also about, is this something that just came out of the box? One of the things that I think David brings as a new board member is new ideas, something fresh. So I hope that helps.
Okay, I didn't know that we were striving to be at the high end of all the communities in Colorado. I didn't realize that was a goal.
And I think that might be something you might want to comment back on. Is,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to be facetious here a little bit, but we can either be Jim's very nice community or Craig's trailer park.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of places in between.
Right. And
I mean, it depends on how much everybody wants to spend.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's why, if you have comments, and David will be getting his email out here, that'll be very helpful.
David, can you provide it?
Yeah, let me just verbally give it to you, if that's all right.
Tell you what I'm going to do, David, is I'm going to put it, does everybody have access to the chat feature?
Everybody except the people on the phone.
You know what we ought to do is post it to Solterra Connect with the presentation.
Yeah,
Well, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's an easy one.
I think I'm already up there, and the board members are already contact information's out there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but it would be good to post the presentation along with your email address.
Okay.
So that'll.
And you help me?
I think, is Jenny, if Jenny's still on, she can help with that. I'll get you in contact with Jenny or whatever. We'll work on
Okay.
it.
Okay, Mike, who else do we have that has comment to make?
Yeah, anybody else raise their hand?
There is a comment in the chat. About,
Comments that weren't related to the topics that we're talking about tonight, they should probably hold those until the December meeting.
yeah, we weren't talking about solar panels, that's the only one that I see.
Okay, Mike, we'll go on with your presentation.
So the next presentation is something I'm going to present. And I forgot to introduce myself, but I'm Mike McCleary. I'm the treasurer for District 1, and I'm the assistant secretary on District 3. So this is a talk about mill levy options, and if you could go to the next slide, Angie. So people are probably saying, okay, the new bonds have been issued, so what does that mean for the mill levy? So we can go to the next slide. So the Finance Committee met a little over a week ago, and these are recommendations from the Finance Committee for Fossil Ridge. And as I point out at the bottom, these are Finance Committee recommendations. The boards make the final decisions. But one of the things when we're looking at mill levies we talked about is trying to avoid increases to the quarterly homeowner assessment fee. That's the fee that's currently $350 a quarter or $1,400 a year. The second thing is rebuild the debt service fund surplus. When we refunded all the previous bonds, the 2010, 2014, 2016 bonds, and did the new money for 2020, we were required to liquidate all of our surplus debt service money. That's one of the reasons we were able to issue fewer bonds than if you added up, the outstanding amount of principal and the new money of $10 million, why we only had to do 31 million or 33,105,000 instead of like 37 or 38 million. The other thing is no increase in the overall mill levy. The overall mill levy right now is 43.668. It's been that way, or was intended to be that way for like the last 3 years. And then another objective that the Finance Committee recommends is to avoid dramatic swings in the overall mill levy in the future. So by trying to build up some surpluses, we can try to even out, um, any peaks that could come down the road. So if we could go to the next one. So the first one we talk about is avoid increases to the quarterly homeowner fee. Currently $350 per quarter, $1,400 per year. Finance Committee recommends that we avoid increasing this. Our recommendation is that additional revenues are needed to balance the general fund budget, that we increase the general fund O&M mill levy, but not to the point where it would increase the overall mill levy. So the current O&M mill levy is 5.458 mils. That's part of that 43.668 mils. So we would look at we would recommend increasing that somewhat to build up some surpluses, but not to the point where it would increase above, where the overall mill levy would be above 43.668. Okay. Next thing is to rebuild the debt service fund. As I said earlier, we had to deplete or liquidate all of our previous surpluses, around $3 to $4 million, I believe. But that was a requirement of refunding, and a positive, like I said, in that it reduced the amount of refunding bonds. The Finance Committee recommends that the debt service fund reserve be equal to 1 year's worth of principal and interest. Now, over the 30-year life of the new bonds, and John Wendling is going to provide some additional information at a later presentation or something, but there was an earlier summary kind of sent out, but he'll provide more detail in the future. But on average, that mill levy for the debt service principal and interest over the 30 years, it stays right around $1.7 million. It comes from like 1,710,000 or something to I think the highest one is $1,722,600. So we just rounded it up. And we're talking about building that up over multiple years, 3 to 6 years. So having a debt service reserve to protect Fossil Ridge against future economic downturns, one of the concerns is what the pandemic could do to us, like if we missed out on some property taxes, it could cause problems if we don't build up a reserve. We could be in default of our new bonds if we aren't able to accommodate some downturns. The money could also be used if we decide somewhere down the road to recall bonds when it's appropriate. So we could shorten the life of that 30 years to something shorter if we have a reserve and we want to use some of that to retire some of these bonds in the future. Also, S&P, Standard & Poor's, and other rating companies look favorably when you have a healthy reserve. We can go to the next slide. Okay, like Finance Committee is recommending no increase in overall mill levy, like we said before. And as we stated throughout the bonding process, the process of issuing the 2020 bonds, FRMD was able to refund the existing 2010, 2014, 2016 bonds, plus an additional $10 million in new money, and still reduce the annual debt service payments. The previous annual debt service payments were $2 million per year. The new ones, like the one I've got in there, is the highest, and that's like down the road a little ways. But in general, it's about $1.7 million per year. So we either want to maintain or preferably decrease the current overall mill levy of 43.6682 mils. On the next slide, we want to avoid any dramatic swings in the overall mill levy. There won't be increase over the 2020 rate of 43.668 mils, It will most likely be reduced below that level for 2021, but that's what the board's going to have to decide at the December 7th meeting. At the December 7th meeting, they'll get the most current version of the budget. I'll have to make some decisions around a few categories and then decide whether to increase the homeowner assessment fee, keep it the same, increase the mill levy, or cut some expenses. So the board will be looking at that in the December 7th meeting. And so as we said, we want to avoid increases to the homeowner assessment fee and repay O&M developer advances, which is still being researched. The total mill levy picture. Here's, can you scroll down one more? I don't think you have the most current slides. Anyway, Fossil Ridge is just a part of all the mill levies. The total mill levy for homeowner in Fossil Ridge is 155.1690 mills. That includes 8 other mill levies. Jefferson County Schools has 47.0750 mills. Jefferson County itself has 23.332 mills. Mount Carbon Metro District is 22.118 mills. We're required to pay that because of the land that we sit on in Fossil Ridge used to be part of Mount Carbon when they declared bankruptcy, and any area that was excluded from Mount Carbon, like the Fossil Ridge areas was still required to pay toward paying off the bonds that were issued in 2004. I'll tell you one thing is, as the development down south continues to grow and they start building houses, those houses will also start paying off toward that Mount Carbon Metro District mill levy, and at some point that will go down and disappear. I don't know if it will disappear completely in our lifetimes. It will certainly go down once they do more development on it. West Metro Fire Protection actually has 2 separate mill levies. I didn't put the details in each, but the 2 of them together add up to 13.268 mills. City of Lakewood has a small mill levy, 4.711, and Urban Drainage and Flood Control has 2 mill levies, which is 0.9970. The thing that I had in the updated one had some of the mill levies of other metro districts. Now, if you live in a community a large community that was developed prior to the mid-1980s or so, metro districts were not that prevalent. But any new big development since then is usually a metro district, and the mill levies are significantly higher. If you look at in Dallas, which is up by Nevada off of Highway 793 on the way to Boulder, I think theirs is at 77. If you go over to Green Gables, which is where the Green Gables golf course used to be at the corner of Jewel and Wadsworth, theirs is like 66. There's a few others that are in the 50s and 60s. The presentation that gets uploaded to the website will have all those on there. But the ones I was looking at, Fossil Ridge at 43.668 is one of the lowest. Now, they haven't started assessing the ones down at Red Rocks Ranch yet, but they're projecting like 60, I think. That's their max. They could be lower than their max. But just like our max is 50 prorated, there it is. So here's some of the other ones. Table Mountain, several of these are in Golden and Arvada, Layton's Ranch. You see they're all higher than us. Even Mount Carbon is higher than us if you lived in Mount Carbon but outside of Solterra or outside of Fossil Ridge. Then I included King Carl. King Carl, I think was started in the 1970s, what I think Ted was saying.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was definitely in the 70s.
It was sold by Johns Manville to somebody else. And I think that was about the time Metro Districts were being formed because they were became a Metro District in like 1988. Theirs is only 19.184 right now. I don't know what it was back then, but they were a mature district.
Mike, I think when we investigated that, and I could be wrong, but that is actually a rec
No, this is a
association.
Metro District.
Well, so, yeah, but it's a Metro District Rec Association, I believe.
Well, they have two things. They have a master association, and then they have a Metro District. I got some of the information off their bond offerings, which has to be true or it's
But Mike, the bottom line here is that we have a lot of comments about how expensive it is to live in Solterra. And I think what you've demonstrated here is that we're not doing too bad at 43 mils.
Yeah.
Why, that's not bad compared to comparable communities in the same vicinity.
right. And if you want to live, if you want to get away from the Metro District, it pretty much has to go to a older community, something that's prior to the mid-1980s. You might find some small things like I've noticed along Alameda on both, like one block, one side of each side of Alameda down there like by King Supers and so on. There's some small developments and patio home type houses. Those developments are so small, they're like a block or two. I'm pretty sure they didn't do a Metro District to do those. But when you get into large communities, major developments are going to be in Metro Districts until the state legislature changes something. And as Tom was saying, we're below, what most of them are. A lot of these, Lions Ridge, Table Mountain, Green Gables, Candelas, which is called Beaumont, they all started right around the same time, maybe a few years after Fossil Ridge. And then if you could go one more slide, because, right there. So 1 mil, if we change 1 mil within the Fossil Ridge mills, remember we're only part of the 155 mills that each homeowner is charged. But if I use a home as an actual value of $750,000, you apply that residential assessment rate that Dave mentioned earlier, 7.15, and then that comes out to be $53,625 of the actual assessed value. That's what you apply the tax to. So 1 mil of that is $53.63. So if we lower the mill levy, then if you lower it by 1, you increase it by 1, it's $53.63 per year. So our changes are not going to impact your overall mill levies. Your property values increase every 2 years to get reassessed. As Dave also mentioned, I think the growth initiative, as you see in places like Boulder, home values go up because of those growth limitations. So you'll probably see your home values go up, and also mill levies is just a part of that. I did see a couple of chat things that are related to this. Somebody said they lived in Table Mountain and Golden before moving here, and my taxes were about half of what I pay now. Table Mountain Metro District is a specific area. So I went to the county assessor's website. Anybody can do this. You can go to the county assessor's website. You can look it up by address. pick an address, and you can see what people are paying. Gary asked, Solterra has 2 metro districts. Pay on property taxes, please reference the aggregate when you compare it to other metro districts. There's 2 metro districts, but both metro districts pay the same mill levy. Both Districts 2 and District 3 pay 43.668 mills. When we look at that, both of them, because of what's called intergovernmental agreements, have to pay, and also because of the bonding, there are agreements that District 3 issued the bonds and District 2 has to agree to issue the same mill levies.
Mike,
I think,
oh, okay. I think what Gary is referring to, because he's done it a couple presentations before, is Mount Carbon. And I think what we've got to be very clear with the community, that's a misleading statement, Gary. We have no influence over Mount Carbon. FRMD does not manage Mount Carbon. It's because where we live. FRMD is responsible for FRMD. And the other thing I want to say to Mr. Cantrell is that because we have a vision statement and a business plan that we're looking at, that does not mean we're trying to support mill levy increases. Mike has just done a great job explaining where the finance committee wants us to go. We are trying to put a lid on our increases. A focus can make us a better community, and that's what it's all about.
Right. And you're right, David. We have no control over what Mount Carbon does. Their rates will also be frozen, just like they've increased theirs. Their original one was 20 mils. They're able to increase it the same way we were able to, where it's considered revenue neutral, but because of the repeal of Gallagher, the residential assessment rate will be frozen at 7.15, so they should not be increasing that above 22.118. That's all they're authorized for in the bankruptcy agreements. Okay, somebody asked about.
We're going to need to move on. We've got another session.
Angie, could you capture any of these questions, and if we didn't get to them, I'll try and answer them when we post on the website?
Yes, absolutely. We'll save them.
Thank you. So, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Like I said, there's no decisions made tonight. It's more to present the information, have the board thinking about things. If as a resident you want to provide input, we'll probably put my email address, I assume, when we post the presentation I did. You can send things to me at that email address, and we can share it with other members of the board.
Okay, great. So we are now going to move on to a special board meeting. And Angie, I'll turn things over to you to get that started.
All right, great. Thank you. So we will go ahead and call this to order at 7:38 p.m. So we will do a roll call for all the directors. I would also like to ask the directors if there are any disclosures or conflicts you need to address at the time of the roll call. Please do so then. So we will start with District 1. Tom Waterman.
Here.
Craig Brown.
present, no conflict.
Mike McCleary.
Present, no conflicts.
Dave McGraw.
Present, no conflicts.
Gary Larson. Oh, he might be muted.
He's muted.
Okay. I see David muted also.
Terry, you're muted.
Lost Terry.
Terry Larson, this is able to unmute. Present and no conflict.
Thank you. Okay, District 2, Dave McGraw.
Present, no conflict.
Gary Larson,
Present, no conflict.
Alan Plumhoff,
He is excused this evening.
okay, Ted Michelson,
Present, no conflicts.
Tom Waterman.
Present and no conflict.
Thank you. District 3, Craig Brown.
Present, no conflicts, and when we get to Daniel Dominic, he's been excused.
Great.
He will not be present.
Aaron Hochstein?
Yeah, present, no conflicts.
Thank you. David Wilson?
Present, no conflicts.
Daniel Dominic is excused. Mike McCleary?
Present, no conflict.
Great, thank you all. Also to confirm the posting, all of the state statutes were met with posting notice, as evidenced by all of those in attendance. So we will move on to approval of the agenda. So we do have an agenda before you that was published and sent to all the directors. So I would entertain amendments to that agenda or an approval.
Angie, Tom Waterman, I would like to make a motion that we add public comment into this session.
Craig Brown, second.
Great. Okay, so we will do, I'll entertain one, let's do a motion for each district, just to keep things consistent. So Tom and Craig, I'll take that for District 1. All in favor in District 1?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I will move, David Raw, I will move for District 2.
Ted Michelson, second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and District 3.
David Wilson, I'll move for District 3.
Craig Brown, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike McCleary, yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, great. So we will jump then right into public comment, because it is public comment now, and then executive session is the only other item on the agenda. So if anybody has public comment, I would ask for either a note in the chat or raise your hand or jump up and down, and we'll make sure that we get you noticed. Keep in mind for public comment, as usual, 3 minutes per person to speak for public comment. And the public comments is intended for the board to hear your comments. It is not for the board to answer or provide further information or discussion. It's a time for them to hear what you have to say. So if anybody is interested in their 3 minutes for a public comment. Not seeing anything in the comments. Going once. Going twice. All right, sold. Forever hold your peace. So, moving on. So we will move on in the agenda. The next item on the agenda is an executive session. So we will ask that everybody not involved in that executive session, we will have you enter the waiting room. When the executive session is over, we will reconvene and likely, to my understanding, adjourn the meeting, but you're welcome to hang out and see if there's any further business after. There is none on the agenda, so there should be none that is brought up. But that is up to you if you want to hang out. So I would entertain a motion for entering into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, Section 4B, to consult with and receive advice from legal counsel regarding the imposition of snow removal fees.
District 1, David Raw, move.
Craig Brown, second.
Great. District 1, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. District 2?
Ted Michelson, move.
Gary
Dave
Larson,
requests
second.
support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, District 3, please.
Mike McClear, I so move.
This is Aaron, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Okay, motion carries. We'll take just a couple seconds to clear attendees to the waiting room, and then we can get started.
Before you do that, I should probably do a certification for the record.
Okay,
This is Dina Ross, General Counsel for the Fossil Ridge Metropolitan Districts 1 through 3. I will certify that the executive session will constitute an attorney-client communication and will not be recorded.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.